Today I welcome you all in my YouTube channel Ojha's Education Factory, and today I am going to discuss about the World Trade Organization, that is WTO. So before getting to this topic, I would like to tell you regarding myself. So my name is Pradeep Kumar Ojha, and I have done my MTech from SGS-ITS Indore, and uh, before getting to the MTech, I have qualified GATT exams many times, and also I have worked as an engineer in Force Motor Pitampur, Madhya Pradesh, and also worked as an assistant professor in many engineering colleges in Indore itself. And apart from this, I have been teaching since 5 years to the technical subject as well as non-technical. Okay, so now let's talk about the WTO. So, before going into the deep this topic, first of all, we should understand the definition of WTO. The very simple definition is that WTO is an governmental organization that regulates, facilitates international trade. Right, and this is organization that provide the rules and regulation for trading across the world. Right, here government use the organization to establish, revise and enforce the rules and govern the international. Means this WTO provide some rules, regulations for trading across the country. All right. Now next. Now let's talk about the WTO. Uh, so WTO is a successor to the GATT, that is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, which was created in 1947. My dear friends, GATT WTO is a second institution or a furnished institution from the GATT. Okay, in Uruguay round 1986 to 1994, GATT led to the WTO creation, right? So WTO began its work on 1st January 1995. Before the 1995, WTO was known as GATT. Okay, but the difference between GATT and WTO is that, let me tell you, GATT such kind of institution that works for trade only in goods, but when it comes to the WTO works in trade for goods, services, and intellectual property rights also. So, the what kind of trade is going on, whether you talk about tangible things or non-tangible things, WTO handle all these things, right? And if we talk about its headquarters, so it is situated in Geneva, Switzerland, which is in Europe continent, right? Now its director general is Ngozi Okonjo Iweala. This is an African lady and first woman director general of WTO. You can see her picture left side. She wore a very beautiful attire. Okay, so now talk about the member countries. So at present, WTO has 164 member countries, including Europe Union. Great things. Okay, so let's talk about the structure of WTO. So my dear friend, we must understand what is the structure of the WTO. So very first, you can see here there is a ministerial conference. My dear friends, there is a conference in which this conference has been furnished by the members of WTO, and this conference held every after 2 years, and there is general council which has two main legs, that is dispute settlement body and trade policy review body. The general council report to the ministerial conference, right? And the two main component of dispute settlement and the trade policy review. So let's talk about one by one. If we talk about dispute settlement body, so this body solve the dispute related to the trade. If some member countries of WTO has some clashes or some problem related to the trade. So this organization will help them to resolve the dispute. In same manner, there is a strong watchdog of General Council to review the trade policy in particular time or particular time interval. Okay, so as I have mentioned, WTO maintain the trade in all tangible and non-tangible things. So here you can see in down goods council, there is good council, intellectual property council, services council. If trade is happening due to goods, in goods, so there is a goods council is different. And if trade is happening in the intellectual properties, so there is separate council for that particular trade. And if trade is happening in the services, so there is a separate council to handle the dispute or make some policies, that is services council. All right, now let's talk about next. So now we will talk about the what is the objective of WTO. Okay, so here some points I have mentioned that I will discuss with you one by one. So very first point is that to set and enforce rule for international trades, means that, my friends, as we have mentioned, there are 164 members. So how trade has to be created among the member countries, what should be the rules and regulations? That rules and regulations should be furnished by the WTO, due to which any country, whether you talk about developing country or developed country, they do not face the discrimination, right? The rules and regulations are same for everyone, right? And next, to provide forum for negotiating and monitoring. There is a forum where the trade negotiating is happening, and apart from this, the activity of trading is being monitored by the WTO also. And again, next is to increase the transparency. Transparency means what? As we have mentioned in most upper one point, transparency means whatever the policy that WTO has furnished, each member country have the equal knowledge or information regarding the WTO policies and functions. So there should be no single country who has no information or who has no equal information as compared to the developed country. So it increases that transparency for trade. And next, to cooperate with other international economic institution, right? So this is very important point again, means as we know that WTO is World Trade Organization, so it ultimately work for to increase the economic condition of all the countries. So apart from the WTO, there are so many another institutions that work for the economy. So WTO coordinate with that institutions also and get the benefit, and this benefit is distributed among the member countries, right? So it also help to get such things also. And to help poor countries, very important points again. WTO has been furnished in 1995. Since then, WTO is mostly emphasis on the developing and underdeveloped countries to sell out their products or to purchase their products, right? So this is again very important point. Now talk about next. Now let's talk about recent challenges in WTO. What kind of challenges has to be faced by the WTO? So very first point you can see here on the slide, that is China's state capitalism. Here a word that is capitalism you can understand. So if any country has so many industrialists, they operate or they run their own companies and they set rules and regulations for trade by itself, right? So China has spread all over the world, and there are so many companies in different products. So they have set their own rules for trading, and in that rules, WTO rule book does not fit. So WTO is facing so many consequences, right? And next is institutional issues. Institutional issues means, at present if we talk about WTO, there is so many internal conflicts or so many scarcity to work for the member countries. For example, if there is a disputes between two member countries in terms of trade, so how this disputes or this appeal, who is going to be handled or who is going to listen the appeals? So there should be a body of judges that can solve the disputes. So there is a lack of such body that can solve the disputes. And apart from this, there is so many vacant seats that hasn't been fulfilled. Okay, now again lack of transparency is also here. So lack of transparency means what? uh, Even at present WTO does not have clear definition of the whether this country is developing country or developed country. Country itself designate their condition whether we are a poor or developed country. So the WTO should have such parameter on which WTO can declare the country whether this country is developed or underdeveloped. Again, next point is e-commerce and digital trade. You know, in the earlier time, WTO has been working on the tangible things or goods things, services, but nowadays digital marketing or digital trade has spread their fruits entire the world. So WTO does not have equal clear policies and rules for trading, for digital trading. So this is a main issue that has to be addressed in forthcoming time. And again is agricultural development. So there are so many agriculture agreement in WTO, due to which so many countries have a problem of food scarcity. For example, India also means WTO should release such a list uh, for for how much land should be used for agriculture and how much land should be used for forest. So this thing should be clear cut for all the countries. Now we will go for next slide. Now again we must talk about the achievements of WTO. Why we have furnished or we have spent so much money to establish such organization. What this organization has done for us. So we will consider some points that have achieved by the WTO. So very first point, that is global facilitation of trade. Correct. This organization play an important role to connect one country to another country for the trading or for the import or export the things, right? Before the WTO or before the globalization, there are so many restrictions to purchase your item from purchase your item across the country. So now this is very easy. You can sell out your product outside your country. Next is improved economic growth. Of course, this is a clear instruction for each and every member countries. By the WTO or by the economic globalization, each member country gaining some profit. Suppose one place you want to purchase your product, if you are not getting satisfactory rate of your product, so you can go somewhere else where you can sell out your product and gain some more money, due to which you can increase your economic growth. And next is increased global value chain. Means global value chain means WTO is an organization that can predict of the trade, where you can sell your product, and also it provides strong communication among the member countries from where they can get information for trading, right? And next is upliftment of poor countries. Of course, WTO has been working to increase the wealth of poor countries, and this is such a very important point. So many poor countries are getting good benefit from WTO. WTO decrease the import tariff on underdeveloping country, and if they want to export their products, so also decrease the tariff. So WTO is again helping to the poor countries. Now way forward. What things has to be rectified in forthcoming time? So there are 3 points I have mentioned, and that points I will try to explain you. So very first point, the developed new set of rules. There are so many old rules that are not fit in the present situation for trade. So that rule should be changed and new rules should be furnished, and deal more effectively with China's trade policy and practices. As we know that China makes so many malpractices for trading, and due to which so many poor countries are not able to sell out their product, or they are not getting the equal attention in worldwide, right? So there should be a clear policy or platform where such problems can be addressed. A new increased effort to align trade and environmental sustainability. Yes, of course, very last but not the least point that I will discuss with you. Environmental sustainability is most important for us. One side you are increasing the economic growth, but another side you should not forget whether you are degrading your environment. So your health of environment and health of your economy should we go ahead equally. Okay, so WTO must work in both this thing, right? So I hope, my dear friends, you have listened my entire video and you have got some new information and knowledge from my video. If you like, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to get the further notification of new videos. Thank you very much.